Okay, my outstanding friends, get ready. We're going to go into this podcast from the National Science Foundation. Now, they're talking about blocking bacteria. Now, if you've been following me, you understand that I've been getting very, very deep into bacterial enzymes and the catalyst effect that they have on biology. And the enzymes that are produced by bacteria are literally the only way that biology can work, because enzymes speed up reactions millions of times. Biology will not work without enzymes. It just is too slow. The enzymes are the facilitating factor, and the enzymes are produced by bacteria. So they're talking about blocking bacteria. Now, I haven't watched this. We're going to watch it together. This is a Fair Use Act. I'm not trying to steal anything from anybody. I'm going to comment on what the National Science Foundation claims to be. Is it good to block the bacteria, or is it bad to block it? I really don't know what they're going to say, but we're going to find out. And I'm going to make my comments, which I always do. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, what you have to realize is my way of doing things is I give you the conclusion, and then I tell you how I got to that conclusion. And the conclusion that I have come to about bacteria is that you will die without having the correct bacteria in you, and it will not take long, because your bacteria creates enzymes. The enzymes do all the chemistry. Now, as they're going to speak, I will speak to their comments and see how we work together or totally apart. They're talking about blocking bacteria. I'm talking about promoting good bacteria, because that is your immune system. The good bacteria live in the interstitial layer of this fluid-filled highway, and the bacteria create the enzymes. The enzymes are catalysts. Catalysts change molecules millions of times faster. In a quarter of a second, the correct bacteria can transform molecules in 1/4 of a second, which would take years to happen without that catalyst. It would happen. It's a natural event, but it would take years. But when you add that catalyst, which is from the bacteria, which is an enzyme, done. That's my take. So there's the conclusion. Let's see how we got to that conclusion and what they have to add or dispute. Let's take it from there. Okay, my friends, this is like Christmas. I ran across this. I had no idea about this existed. Is the Human Microbiome Project defines normal bacterial makeup of the body. Now, I can't believe they know all the different bacteria, but this is the first I've ever even heard of this, as I've been searching. And they're talking about genome sequencing creates the first reference data for microbes living with healthy adults. I got to dig into this because I just discovered it. But also, talking about Christmas, this guy here got a hold of me this morning. He's from University of North Texas, Adam Schwazinski. And he wants to discuss this pathogenicity of endocrine dysregulation in autism, because that's basically what we discovered was the microbiome absolutely affects all of these disorders: ADD, ADHD, autism, depression, mood swings, all of that stuff. And they're pretty locked into that. They understand that now. And he's doing some investigation. It's fabulous. And he's talking about a central common associated link, which I also agree with that. Now, he's saying that the paper is the first known attempt to centralize a theory of autism spectrum disorder across a multitude of fields. And basically, I work in the chemistry and all the different fields about this as well, because you have to understand a lot of things rather than just that the guy's not feeling good. You got to understand DNA methylation and all of this stuff. And all of these things, gastrointestinal diseases, and now we just sort of briefly talked this morning. Well, I didn't talk. I just sent him an email. He sent me an email back, and I said, I think everything is related to bacterial enzymes, and he was not 100% on that page. So this is good. I want to find out what he's thinking, because that's where my focus is now. And when we go back to this science paper here, this blocking the bacteria, that's the take I'm going to have on it, is that all bacteria creates enzymes, almost all bacteria. And the enzyme is the catalyst. It does all the chemistry, and without it, it's just never going to happen fast enough. They break down things, boom, just like that. And without that bacterial enzyme, and the only way you get the enzyme is with the bacteria. So if that strain of bacteria is gone, you don't get that particular enzyme. You don't get that particular enzyme, something is not going to be produced, because that's a chemistry set. That's all it is, a chemistry set. You don't have it, psst, you need that chemical, she's not going to be there. All right, you see this? They would call this a bacteria. You know what I call that? A pharmacy. Why a pharmacy? These little balls, they're called ribosomes. Inside there, they have a chemistry set. It comes out in a ball like this. But when that ball unsheaths, it goes like this. And that is what's called an enzyme. And an enzyme is the most elegant molecule you ever found. And it's identical to a pill. You just take a pill, and it opens up in your body, and it does exactly the same thing. There's no difference. Only this knows exactly what to do. The pills that you get in pharmacies, they do the job, let's say, but sometimes they're what they call broad spectrum. They cover a whole palette of things rather than target. This target's exactly identical, and it comes up to the invader, and it goes click, and it's dead. It's called click chemistry, and it doesn't even get used up. It goes click, 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 and all those things die, and this thing just keeps clicking. And it clicks at the speed of light because it's magnetism. Okay, as I said, this is my take on the whole thing, is that right there is your immune system. They're called ribosomes. This is a bacteria, single cell. It has its own DNA, and that DNA has a program built into it that says, I am a little bacteria, and I have a flagella, and I have these little hairy things sticking out, and everything I do in my life is to produce these little blue balls, which are ribosomes. And ribosomes are the things that do all the chemistry in your whole body. And the ribosomes are instantaneous enzymes. Without those, you're done. And these things go all through your body, floating around through your body, squirting out these enzymes wherever they're needed to do the biology of killing things or breaking down food or making proteins for building blocks. They do all this, they do both things. They make breaker things, which is enzymes, and they make builder things, which is the proteins. All right, this is actually very simple. The bacteria, which there's thousands and thousands of species in your body and mine, create the ribosomes. Those are these little blue balls, or they could be any color. And they come out just like this. All right? So this guy runs around squirting out these ribosomes. And the ribosomes are these balls. They come out in a ball like this. It's got a sheath around it, like a little plastic capsid, they call it. And it goes, and it unsheaths, and it turns into an enzyme. All right? Or it could turn into a protein. What's the difference between an enzyme and a protein? An enzyme comes out and it destroys things. It breaks things down. It sees food that's all chained together in these different molecules, and it says, you guys got to break apart. And it comes out, blip, 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 and it'll just break apart spontaneously. Now, it might also come out and say, we need some more bone matter over here. We need some more small leucine-rich proteins. We need some more polypeptides, whatever it is. It comes out and it goes, unsheaths, and it goes like this. This time it makes a protein, all right, or a little protein like that, which is a building block. Over here, it makes an enzyme which has all kinds of magnetic signatures, and there's so many magnetic signatures that it can discriminately find exactly the target and go bam and kill it. And this is what an enzyme looks like. You see that? It looks like a little tangled stuff. Well, here's what an enzyme really looks like. That's what this is, exactly like this. And it's identical because all of these little blue and red, and those are different polarities and different dipole moments. So if this thing is exactly, I'm talking exactly, if this thing was twisted like that, it wouldn't work. If this twisted like that, it wouldn't work. It has to be identical every single time. It's a program. The program isn't programmed right, it's not going to work. It might cause a problem if it's not programmed right. But the bacteria are the thing, and of course a bad bacteria sends out something that is programmed to damage you. Yes. They're programmed to attack you. They're programmed to open up a place where they can dig into you. And this is what happens with cancer. These bacteria come down like this. They're like a ball, and then they send out these little filaments to try to find holes in your body. the junctions, your cells are all held together like this. If you got a hole like that, and that thing comes along and blip, it goes right through that hole, and you're on the other side of that hole, it's just going to start living off of you. These are the protector enzymes that are coming out to try to attack this thing. But if you don't have these, you can't attack back. And that thing just goes through, and then you get what they call cancer. And this is it right here. All right, this is the area of your body, the skin and the fascia, that surrounds everything. Your skin surrounds your whole entire body, obviously, and your fascia surrounds every organ and even the fibers of your nerves. There's fascia around them, and then they have one little layer here, which is the fluid-filled highway, supposed to contain all those enzymes and bacteria. If they can get through that, and you can't damage it back, then you get cancer, and there's nothing you can do because there's no way to fight back against this. So they try to give you drugs to come in to kill all those invaders. And yes, they might do that, but you could also have other damage. There's all kinds of things to consider here. That's why we're trying to work out a bacterial enzyme database. And then we can know a little more with a little more certainty. And that's why I was just shocked to see this. I couldn't believe this. They have this database going on. Where is it? Since 2012. Human Microbiome Project defines normal bacterial makeup. This is if you fall into the normal pattern of people that, well, let's just get into it. There's going to be some kind of a pattern.
Roger, take your...
The crazy thing is, listen to this. This is stunning that they haven't paid more attention. This is over 10 years ago. It says genome sequencing creates first reference database for microbiomes. Microbes inhabit just about every part of the human body. Every part. They live on the skin, in the gut, up the nose, up your butt, everywhere in your body, under your arms, your back, your skin, all the membranes of your body have these microbes. Sometimes they cause sickness, but most of the time microorganisms live in harmony with their human hosts. It's a give and take situation. Now, this is providing vital functions essential for human survival. So you get human survival because you have bacteria working back and forth. It says, for the first time, a consortium of researchers organized by the National Institute of Health has mapped the normal microbial makeup of healthy humans, producing numerous insights and even a few surprises. Listen carefully. We all are ready to die if we don't have something that can respond, because it says right here, researchers found, for example, nearly everyone, and it is everyone, routinely carries pathogens, which are killer diseases. They're inside of all of us. They're microorganisms known to cause illnesses. But in healthy individuals, however, pathogens cause no disease at all. You live with them and they're happy and you're happy. They simply coexist with their host and the rest of the human microbiome because they're working along with somebody else. The collection of all microorganisms living in the human body is your microbiome. Researchers must now figure out why some pathogens turn deadly, under what conditions, likely revising current concepts of how microorganisms cause disease. This is over 10 years ago. Spent $153 million to do these studies, and as far as I'm concerned, nobody even finds out about. Most of this stuff they don't even know about. It just doesn't filter through the system. So at least we have a place to start now. I got to look into this a lot. But what I'm talking about is if you don't have, right now, inside of you, right now, this instant, you have flesh-eating bacteria. Right? They say, oh, that's got flesh-eating bacteria. Oh, run for your life. No. No, you got it in you right now. And if you didn't have it, you would die. And you say, oh, come on, Roger, how could you say that? I'm flesh-eating bacteria. I'm floating around with flesh. Yes, you are. You got flesh-eating bacteria right now. Right in your mouth, probably. And you say, oh, come on. I said, well, here's the deal. What happens, do you think, when your cells die in your body? Where do you think they go? They're attached somewhere in your body and then they die. You say, you're continuously, it's called apoptosis. Your cells are programmed to last so long and they pop off. And then somebody's got to pick them up and take them out of there and get rid of them. That's the bacteria. And that's the flesh-eating bacteria. It comes down and eats that stuff and takes it out to the lymph nodes. And the lymph nodes flush it out of the body. Here's what the lymph nodes look like. All right, they come down in the lymph ducts, not in the blood supplies. They come in the lymph duct. They come in, and inside of here there's a ton of bacteria. It does its job, and it goes back out and keeps going around and collecting the nasty stuff. And the lymph nodes clean it up. So as far as I'm concerned, without the bacteria, you're done. There's no way that your body can function fast enough to create the products of life. It just can't happen. And even the National Institute of Health says that. They also claim the same thing. It's just impossible for life to exist without proteins and enzymes, which are the catalysts. It's impossible. So let's see what the National Institute of Health says about blocking them. All right, let me just read you this. This is from the National Institute of Health again. Central role of enzymes as biological catalysts. And you know that these enzymes are the things that the bacteria creates, and only bacteria can create them. It says, in the absence of these enzymes, most biological reactions are so slow they would not occur under the conditions compatible with life. Enzymes accelerate the rates of such reactions well over 1,000,000-fold. Reactions that would take years in the absence of catalysts can occur in fractions of seconds. Bip, done. If the catalysts are by the appropriate enzyme. If you don't have the appropriate bacteria, you're not going to have the enzymes. Cells contain thousands of different enzymes. That means thousands of different bacteria. And their activities determine which of many possible chemical reactions actually take place within the cell. You don't have the right enzymes, you don't have the right outcome. Now, here's a real quick description. Bacteria are living cells, and they scoot around through the fluid-filled highway. They have the capabilities of consuming waste. They eat things of different types. They can reproduce by themselves, and they actually produce the enzymes. Better said, bacteria are the factories that produce the enzymes. Without the bacteria, which is the factory, you don't get the enzyme. An enzyme is the ribosome. So here's the whole process in one deal. There's the bacteria, it squirts out that ribosome. Here's the whole thing in one shot. The bacteria squirts out the ribosome. All right, so this whole thing is the ribosome. And when it comes out, it's a chain of little particles like this, all in a row. It's a program, and they're all programmed. There's 20 different amino acids, and it's a program. So the program comes out of here, and it comes into this, which is an enzyme area. All right, and it's going to transfer these into this mRNA strand, messenger RNA strand. All right, so that's half of the DNA. So it comes down As these come out, it goes, and it comes out. Now, that mRNA strand has a target in our DNA, and it incorporates itself right into there, but it has to have another catalyst, another enzyme. Anytime you see ASE on the end of something, it means it's a catalyst, it's an enzyme. And that catalyst, RNA polymerase, comes up and breaks the DNA and lets this thing come up and attach. And that's how this, and now this is programmed. So the program's designed here by this bacteria's DNA. So it has its own DNA. And its DNA says, you're going to squirt out a whole thing. You're going to have a blue, a green, 2 yellows, 1 purple, and a black, and a this and a that, in a row. These are polypeptide chains. And they come out there, like a typewriter. It comes through, and half of a strand, it breaks through, and because these half a strand can only attach to another molecule in a certain way, you don't need to know the technical details here, but like there's only like a T can go to an A and a G can go to a C, that type of thing, and boom, if they're wrong, they won't match. Boom, they hit together, and now you got that program, and from then on you're immune. That's what bacteria does. So that you, in order to become immune from something, you have to have a new enzyme. So that means bacteria are the things that are evolving, not us. The bacteria are the ones that are evolving. You know, evolution is by bacteria. We're run by the bacteria. We're nothing more than a factory. The bacteria does everything. It even controls your emotions, your attitude, your physical health. I mean, it controls literally everything in you is from the bacterial enzymes. And that's what I was going with Adam this morning. He says, not 100%, no. Well, let's see. Let's talk about it. Let's see what the National Science Foundation has to say. Let's start there. Now, before we do get started, I just want you to understand, I only do research. I don't give any medical advice whatsoever. But in order to begin to understand things, you have to do the research. You have to be able to discuss, and you have to be able to create a community of people to talk about it. So the suppression of discussion in the medical realm has been pretty severe. And I've been sanctioned a couple of times about this. Don't talk about things that are health. Well, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just saying let's examine what the scientific evidence is, just like these guys, the National Science Foundation. They're just nothing more than researchers too. I mean, maybe they do give advice. I don't know. I don't give any advice. Now, there's a couple last things before we get into that video. We're going to be talking about membranes, and membranes are like between layers of tissue. So you have the skin here, and then you have a membrane, and then you have your vital flesh underneath. This is stuff is made to come and go. This is your abrasive area that skin cells fall off continuously. But once you break through that layer, now you're in trouble. Now here's the key. They never knew this layer existed, this white layer, which is a fluid-filled highway. It's now in 2018, they said, meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. This is through your entire body. Every single cell has this layer, which is this fluid-filled highway. It's one huge system in the body, and that is basically your lymph fluids flow through there. Okay, and the lymph fluids are the things that we're talking about with the enzymes and the bacteria, and they go through the ducts, where did I show you here? Yeah, into your lymph nodes. So that's the stuff that passes through this tubular network, which is the lymphatic ducts, and then they get cleaned up. All right, and they never knew this layer was here. It was a brand new organ. And here's what it looks like. You got your skin, and then you got all this gooey stuff underneath. They knew what the gooey stuff was here, but they didn't realize there was a layer of a fluid-filled highway that was where the blockade system is. That's your immune system. Cancer is an invasion, and so is basically all diseases that I can figure out. They're invasions. Cancer, and there's like 400 types of cancers. That's because there's like 400 types of different chemistry. Every part of your body has a different chemistry. Every part. Now, don't forget, this is stuff that you don't care about this stuff here that much. You get cuts, scrapes all the time. Big deal, no big deal. However, if the stuff that's coming into you gets through that cut, and there's no guy's here to come and kill it, it just keeps growing. And that's when you get cancers. Well, first of all, you get it festered and all kind of things, and the white blood cells come down, and you get all kind of nasty pus and everything else, which is trying to attack these invaders. If it's successful, it just heals. If it's not successful, it just is getting worse and worse and worse. Now, you don't have to start with a major injury. You can start with just a little tiny thing, and if there's nothing to stop it, it will eventually go stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're inside. Then you got trouble. So this is where my focus is this layer right there, that exact layer. That's the layer that has all these fluid-filled highways in it through your whole entire body. And when I say your whole entire body, let me show you what I mean. You see this? This is that fluid-filled highway, brand new, and most doctors don't even really understand it yet. And this is basically what is a membrane. They always knew about the membrane, but they didn't realize there was another layer above it where all of the little fluids squirted out here into there to travel around the body. So they knew about this membrane. They just didn't know about the fluid-filled highway that was on top of it. Let's think about it that way. And that's the protector. That's where these things float around. And that's where these things come down to it. They come down to attach. But you got that fluid-filled highway, and you got so much fluid in you. There's 4 times more lymphatic fluids, which is extracellular fluids, than there is blood. 4 times more. This little fluid is floating around through the lymphatic system. All right, and that's why it just keeps getting cleaned up and cleaned up. But if you don't have the right bacteria in here, you're not going to create the chemistry, and then therefore you're not going to be able to get rid of these toxins. And then of course the toxin will eventually cause a disease. That's what my research approach is. However, what is the bacteria we're talking about? This is where we need to focus in on. We need to find out who has what kind of bacteria in them, and what kind of people with what kind of bacteria have what kind of diseases and illnesses and sicknesses and mental health conditions, chronic disease. All of that stuff is going to be, I believe, a product of some form of bacterial imbalance, dysbiosis. It's not going to be equal. You got stuff that's eating your body right now. You got all kind of deadly things in you right this instant. And if they can squirt through and get inside of you and nobody stops them, then you're in trouble. The other guys, it's a balancing act. I push you, you shove me back. We'll work together, but don't try to take over, and I won't try to take over. Let's have harmony. And that's what your body is a harmonious balance between opposing, competing forces, bacteria. We are a battleground, my friends. A battleground is just going on inside of us continuously. I mean, it really is. That's a fact. It's crazy when you look at things the way I do. All right, I'm sorry. Let's get serious. Here we go. When I say these membranes coat everything, this is what I mean. Inside of you, you got all kinds of different organs. You got different blood and marrow and bones and veins and arteries and ribs and tendons and muscles and connective tissues and all kinds of organs and spleen and all these different things. And every single one of them, 100% of those will have a little bit of different chemistry surrounding them because they have a different content. So your stomach is not going to have the same kind of a coating as your bones. And your bones aren't going to have the same kind of a coating as your testicles and your throat and your esophagus and your veins and your arteries and all those. Now, think about this. The coating that protects you, again, is the membrane. If you don't have the right membrane here for that bone, the bacteria living there, you're probably not going to have it over here. So they say cancer spreads. Well, if the bacteria isn't good here, it's not going to be good there. So it doesn't necessarily have to spread to there. It could just develop over here because there's nothing to stop it over here either. But you're going to get bone cancer. And that kind of cancer, like lymph node cancer, lymphomas, if you don't have the right kind of bacteria living in the lymph nodes, and there's a ton of different lymph nodes in you. There's not just one. They're all over the place, and they're very closely grouped to veins and so forth. There's a pattern where they exist, but they filter out all of the toxins. And if you don't have the right bacteria, you're not going to get the chemistry. You're not going to filter out the toxin. That is my belief, and that's my research approach. Let's put it that way. Okay, this is Manifest Destiny. I'm just getting ready to go back to the National Science Foundation, and this pops up. Brain autopsies reveal a potential new culprit behind Alzheimer's disease. And they're showing these little bundles here, and they're talking about an illustration of a healthy neuron. However, that's all. That neurons are the things that send your nerve pulses and your feelings and all of that stuff, your mobility and everything through your whole body. And they also affect your mental health and your attitude and everything. And how you can think and remember things. All right. And apparently, as you age, you get these dead neurons. All right. And they're being engulfed by microglia over here. Okay. So the dead neurons are going to be eaten up by these microglias. All right, this is incredible. This just popped right up. And they're had brain autopsies reveal a potential new culprit behind Alzheimer's disease. And they're talking about how your brain dies basically, and it's being engulfed and being eaten by those microglia, which are macrophages in the brain. Macrophage is a little, well, I'll show you. Actually, I can show you them doing their job. And they say analysis of human brain tissue revealed differences in how immune cells, these are the things we're talking about, that have these chemistry because they have the enzymes and they have the bacteria living in them, the immune cells. So they reveal differences in how these immune cells behave in brains with Alzheimer's compared to healthy brains. So immune cells aren't doing their job. It's indicating a potential new treatment target. Yes. Now let me show you what these microglia are. They're little macrophages. All right, check this. This is neutrophil, which is nothing more than a macrophage chasing down a bacteria. Watch this. He's going after. He's going to get it too. All of a sudden he gets around and run for your life. It squirts right through him. He's done. Now, he's got other ones inside his body. He's consuming other ones. It consumes a bunch of waste. So you need these macrophages in your body, and they're finding that they're different. Now, what's different? They don't have the right chemistry. Something's not right with the chemistry. It has to be. As far as I'm concerned, that's the problem. If we know what bacteria is in there and because the bacteria create the chemistry to do the job. Now, whether these things are not active enough, there's a lot of possibilities here. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have a lot of questions, and I can see that it's basically all chemistry for me. Let's start with the chemistry. And if the chemistry's not right, well, why isn't the chemistry right? And pretty much now we're finding that is the case, that the bacteria are different in these different gut microbiomes. And that's where all this chemistry is produced to make these enzymes. So as far as I'm concerned, we got gastrointestinal issues. And almost I don't want to make these statements. Let's just look at what the research indicates and see what they have to say at the National Science Foundation. My interpretation right now from the research I have done is that everything is related to the chemistry that is produced by the enzymes, which the enzymes are produced by the bacteria. And our systems are so vulnerable now because there's so many toxins. And if they can't get washed out of our system, or antibiotics for some reason have caused damage to the balance of these pathogens against the good guys, bad guys against the good guys. You're always going to have the bad guys there, just like you do in society. But you have to live in harmony with them. Somehow you have to figure out a way so that it's not, it's like what's going on at these college campuses. They got to figure a way to get along. But the problem is you can't bomb somebody into peacefulness. It's just never going to happen. That's a whole nother issue. Somehow there has to be dialogue. And that dialogue has to be between people that are reputable and trustworthy. And that's the problem. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. And I understand why. It's a very, very difficult time to trust people, because it seems like everybody has their own agenda, and it doesn't matter what's right or wrong, or what's real or what isn't real. It's whatever works for you is the way I'm seeing life going on now. See, here I go on all these little tangents, but that's just the way I work. All right, so don't forget, they're finding Alzheimer's disease, and they're talking about a difference discovered in microglia are different in people with Alzheimer's. Well, what's microglia? Well, microglia is a neuroglia cell located throughout the brain and spinal cord. And what does it do? Microglia account for 10 to 15% of cells found within the brain. That's a large amount, 10 to 15% of all the cells found within the brain. The resident macrophage cells. Well, what's a macrophage? They act as the first and main form of active immune defense in the central nervous system. They attack the invading bacteria, and we can actually watch that happen. Here it goes. You see this? This is one of these microglias, basically. It's a macrophage. This is a bacteria. Watch what happens here. All right, this macrophage is going to chase this thing down, eat it up, and then its enzymes will make it disintegrate. All right, so it's got an intelligence in there, a very strong intelligence, and it's already got some inside of itself now that it's consuming, and they're being broken down inside its body, and it's just going around grabbing them all up, and it's going to find this guy eventually. It'll catch him. So they're both smart. This guy's running away. He's trying to hide, he can't get away. Boom, he's done. All right, the other ones down over here are running and hiding. And then that's going to take care of something else. I probably was a dead cell. So I think that one there was eating one of these, and I think it also ate a cell that had died. That's what they do. They're cleaners. They're trash collectors. So you saw what it did, and the only way you can do that is with the right chemistry. You can't... First of all, it needs the right chemistry for the energy and just the ability to do all its things like we do. You need nutrition. So it's need something here. It's got to get the chemistry to work and be vital. And then it has to have some intelligence in here, a very strong intelligence, to know how to squirt around and morph and change and everything. And that has to be intelligent too. And even lymph fluid itself, I have found, has some form of intelligence, because the fluid itself attacks incoming invasion. And they may be the fluid is just too hard to see. This is where it gets real tricky, because inside the lymph fluid there could be so many of these that the whole fluid looks like it's moving, because they're chasing after something. I think that might be the case now that I'm thinking about it. This is research. There's no hard answers here yet. That's what research is about, building a database, trying to find out and thinking. This is exceptional. This also came in this morning, just minutes apart. 2 pathways to Parkinson's could point to a single way to prevent it. And they're talking about, the research they did, but they're talking about brain or nerves in the gut. All right, and you come down and they're talking about the toxins in the air and the water and the drinking water and cleaning and degreasing chemicals and how the proteins don't fold together correctly and environmental hazards and da. And here's the takeaway right here. There are some unanswered questions with this new theory, which they're saying it's toxins basically in your exposure and the time and the dose and the exposure cause these genetic disorders is what they're talking about, ultimately develop Parkinson's. Some unanswered questions with this new theory, the researchers admit, including what role the skin plays, first of all, and the microbiome. All right, that's where I live, in a microbiome. So where does the skin and the microbiome play in this? How do they protect you? How does disease risk change through prolonged exposure? All right, I don't know why they're seeing this like a big new study, because everybody knows that it further reinforces the idea Parkinson's, the world's fastest growing brain disease, may be fueled by toxic things, toxicants, and is therefore largely preventable. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line on this research. And they understand now. They can see these Lewy bodies, they call them. They're clumps of proteins that they don't fold correctly, and they take charge and they stop the motor control from working, and all kinds of problems. But it's literally it's chemistry. It's chemistry. All right, these don't just grow on their own. They need to be suppressed, just like everybody else. And why does one guy get Parkinson's and one guy doesn't? Well, let's see what their microbiome is. There's going to be I believe, some difference, because only the bacteria create the enzymes, and only the enzymes can do this kind of chemistry. All right, and there should be good and bad. And there's these. They can actually replace your microbiome now. For some reason, it's not legal to do it, but I don't know why. All right, see, they're saying it's going to take some time. Picking apart these connections more precisely is going to take some time. Well, let's get the microbiome database going and start harvesting some samples from volunteers, and we'll just see. Just say, I have this kind of issue, I have that kind of issue, and we'll get a database going and see if we can draw some relationships from that. And it could take some time, yes. It's going to take some funding, yes. Should it be done? Absolutely. Okay, I came back to this National Science Foundation. I was going to go through the whole thing, but it's all about wound dressings. So when you have an injury and then they have to put gauze around or whatever they do, they're creating an environment so that the bacteria can grow under that wound dressing. And then it can actually spread to the wound dressing because it has an environment to live in. The fluids from the body are going in there, and then they just live off it. So she's created something she's trying to create something, and I'm going to just which is a new wound dressing that would help eliminate these long-lasting infections by something. I don't know exactly how she was planning to do it, and as a matter of fact, I don't think she knows either, but they know that this has to be done, or it should be done, to help suppress the amount of infection and the length of time you are affected. Now, I'm going to play just the last couple of minutes, because that's about all that really matters here. Here it goes.
What your next steps are as you try to build it towards a commercial product. Like, for people who don't know how this process might go, what do you need to do still before this could be on the shelf somewhere?
So the development process is a long one. We need to understand the science of how the bacteria work in order to enable the design of the wound dressing. Past that, we need to do all kinds of characterization to make sure that the wound dressing is strong enough to perform in a clinical setting, to make sure that it's going to hold up if it is sitting on a shelf for a month or two. And then we need to test it with cells to make sure that it's performing correctly. We need to test it with animals in order to make sure that the processes still hold up when we go and apply it to infection settings. And all of that needs to happen before this design would ever reach a clinical setting. Our hope is to be able to develop a lot of this in our university lab and then start a small company or partner with a small company in order to work on some of those later phase testing steps, because that is a massive undertaking, and making sure that you have enough data so that this is a safe product that's effective for patients is very key at those stages. So we're still in early days in terms of understanding how it works, how the mechanisms of the bacteria work, whether or not we can put together these building blocks into a functional design. But we certainly hope to one day, be creating our own company a couple years from now in order to bring this product to market.
Okay, I just want to make a statement on my own. It sounds to me like they're starting from scratch. I mean, we got to figure out how to make everything from right from top to bottom. And it is a daunting task because you have to follow all these FDA rules and regulations, and they won't let you do a lot of things. Now, the microbiome creates its own drugs. That's what the bacteria is. The bacteria create enzymes. Enzymes are drugs. This is nothing more than drugs, only they're specifically targeted. So you have to have the right bacteria to make that specific target drug. Now here, they're just trying to keep you from getting more invaded or stop the infection a little bit, some new bandages. All they're making is a new bandage, sounds to me. Which I don't know if they already exist. They might already exist. But because I find a lot of things people are doing, they've already been done. I didn't realize we already have a database. They claim it's a database. It's somewhere around here. Yeah. Human Microbiome Project defines normal bacterial makeup. Now, I don't know how much they got into it. But they say they found all kinds of surprises. $153 million to do it, another $20 million co-funding. And they're like 15th century explorers describing outline of new continents. Nobody understood any of this stuff. And nobody's paid any attention to this. And this is all about the bacterial ribosomal RNAs. And I mean, all of this stuff I've been talking about. 5,000 samples, analyze them, DNA sequencing machines, I got to really get into this. I just found this. The researchers calculate more than 10,000 species occupy the human ecosystem. Well, there's a lot more than that, I believe. Moreover, they calculate they have identified between 81 and 99% of all microorganisms in the genera in healthy adults. Well, if that's true, and they have this database, all we need to do is get up a system going where we can harvest whatever bacteria is in your body, which is your fecal swab, oral, spit, and nasal swab, that type of thing. And then put it through this database and see, are you healthy or not? Because if I'm right, it's the bacteria that make the enzymes, which is the chemistry, which does all the work. It's called, in your body, the instantaneous response is required, which requires that enzyme. I think I made that pretty clear. All right, this is fabulous. This is about this human microbiome project, identifying what is healthy and what is unhealthy. They've already done it. I can't believe that this is not being used more than this. Listen to what they have. And this is in quotations. We have defined the boundaries of normal microbial variations in humans, said James M. Anderson, the PhD's director of NIH Division of Program Coordination, Planning and Strategic Initiative, which includes the common funding, we now have a good idea, a very good idea, of what is normal for a healthy Western population, and are beginning to learn how changes in the microbiome correlate with physiology and disease. Exactly what I'm saying. If you don't have the right microbes, you're not going to have the right enzymes, you're not going to have the right chemistry, and then you're going to get disease. These researchers also reported that this plethora of microbes, there's zillions of them, contribute more genes responsible for human survival than humans do. They're the programmers. They do everything. They identify the invaders and they kill them. They chase them down, those macrophages. All right, where the human genome carries about 22,000 protein-coding genes. Researchers estimate that the human microbiome contributes 8 million unique protein-coding genes, or 360 times more bacterial genes than human genes. Well, what's a bacterial gene? What does that mean? A bacterial gene is a program. A gene is a program. All right? They have 8 million programs. We have 22,000. You see this? It's nothing more than a program, genetic program. Mammalian development is a genetic program encoded in the DNA, a genetic program. All it is a sequences of ons and offs, just like in a computer program. It's literally all it is. And in addition to that, there's methylation, which means can you turn that thing on or off? That's like the switch to turn it on. If it's unmethylated, one way or the other, it's either on methylated or off methylated. But methylation is a process where there's an extra electron basically attached. I believe it's that type of thing. It's an extra little code that turns it on. So it says, okay, you're enabled or you're disabled. It's that type of thing. And I went to Johns Hopkins for genomes, for human genome. And it's just nothing more than a series of programs. And then they say like 98% of your DNA is just garbage. It's junk DNA. No, that's just totally wrong. There's no question whatsoever that extra DNA changes, and it changes in everybody. When you're born, it's a certain way, and instantaneously it starts changing as you adapt to your environment. And that can be proven because of twins, identical twins. When they're first born, they're almost 99% the same. It depends on how they come out through the vaginal canal, if they hit feces or not, so forth, which one hits what, which one came out first. It's a taste of the difference going on there, but very, very little in their junk DNA. And then they go two ways. It depends on what this guy got involved in that two different lives. No, a lot of it's going to be the same, but there'll be a lot of changes in their identical DNA, which is now the junk DNA. So there is no real junk DNA. That's your memory. That's your all kinds of things are stored in there, and it's enormous. Think of this now. You have a DNA strand, which it goes on and on and on and on, bazillions of little molecules in a program code. They say only a couple % of that program code builds your body. All the rest is junk. A couple % makes everything we have here, all of this stuff work. Can you imagine what you could do with that other 98%? That stores all your memories, it stores all your emotions and feelings and, all of the things. And that's also, again, part of the program. A part of the program is only made by chemistry. Chemistry is only made by enzymes. Enzymes are only made by bacteria. Bacteria have to live in your microbiome. And that, to me, is the foundation and the source of all issues. Now, there's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria. You need both. But you need to balance them. And you need to be able to monitor them. And if you're not feeling right for some reason, you should be able to go in and say, I want a stool sample or whatever. And you say, ooh, you're missing the lactobacillus reuteri. Well, give me some. It might be just as simple as that. Wow, I just read this about the microbiome project and the normal bacteria. This goes 12 years ago. Now, this says researchers at Washington University School of Medicine examined the nasal microbiome of children with unexplained fevers, a common problem in children under 3 years of age. Nasal samples from the feverish children contained up to 5-fold more viral DNA than children without the fevers. The viral DNA was from a wider range of species also, so a bunch of different ones. So something could not fight back against these invaders. Because once you get a fever, and that's your body, well, it says down here, previous studies show that viruses have ideal temperatures. All right, viruses work perfectly at, say, 98.6 degrees. So they have an ideal temperature range in which to reproduce. The fevers are part of the body's defense against these viruses that kills them as you get hot. So rapid tests for viral load may help children avoid inappropriate treatment with antibiotics that do not kill the viruses, but may harm the child's healthy microbiome. Just 12 years ago, they realized this. These are among the earliest clinical studies using microbiome data to study its role in specific illnesses. NIH has funded many more medical studies using this data and techniques, including the role of the gut microbiome in Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, esophageal cancer, skin microbes, psoriasis, all of these things. A number of childhood disorders and pediatric abdominal pain, intestinal inflammation, blah, blah, blah. They funded all of these different studies, it says. NIH has funded many more medical studies, including all of these. All right? Enabling disease-specific studies is the whole point of the Human Microbiome Project. Well, getting to the point of fixing people, I think, would be more than enabling the studies. And I think, well, they know right now, I'm sure they understand, it's the enzymes that is doing the chemistry. Or at least they should be, within all these studies, somebody here should understand that. If you don't have the right bacteria, you're not going to have the right enzymes. The bacteria create the enzymes. It's case closed. That's all there is to it. Right? Everything is about funding, investing in a series of studies, evaluating this, doing that. All these studies go way back. Scientists from around the world interested in studying the human microbiome. Well, that's fine. Let's try some more of this bacterial intervention and see how that works. And at least now that I know that there's a database, I don't think anybody's using it that I know of to do any of these follow-ups on these studies. They have found that there's all these things affect your health, and especially in the kids. So why can't we get their profile and, look at it against the data of all the normal people and say, well, this is way out of whack. Can we change that somehow? And how would we change it? We would have to add the bacteria that creates the enzyme, or add the enzymes. Maybe that's the only way to add the enzymes, because they do make a whole ton of enzymes now. They realize these enzymes are instantaneous breakers of molecules and fixers of things, but they can only be produced by the bacteria. You don't get them without the bacteria. I was just looking to see who funds them, the U.S. National Science Foundation. And apparently, this is all about funding. They fund all these people. And it says, find and apply for funding. Our hundreds of funding opportunities support research, education, and training. Well, that's very interesting. Explore NSF discoveries. These are their discoveries. The focus areas. What are the focus areas? What we've funded. And they funded a ton of things, as I showed you before. So maybe I can present my evidence and say, will you fund this study on the bacteria? Or do you have to be from one of these Ivy League schools? And I think that's probably the case. But who knows? I have found very little responsiveness, but if they, I don't really want funding, to be honest with you. I want schools to start looking into what I'm talking about. I want to accelerate technology and innovation. That's what I want. Okay, this is very interesting. I didn't realize this, but the U.S. National Science Foundation funds these innovative projects anywhere, anytime, apparently. What they have funded was like 2,700 plus projects. And they're committed to us being on top here and understanding virtually everything in the sciences. So I would love to see them give some funding to Andy and Marguerite, who we've been working with, to try to get this database up and running. Because everything takes money. It takes time and money. There's no other way to do it. And I give as much as I can, although I don't have any money. But I could talk a lot. But I didn't realize these people give money to people that have, look at this, what we funded. Well, you can put in what they do. But I saw somewhere they funded 2,700 different research projects. Now, we don't really need much funding, I don't think. I would leave that up to Marguerite and Andy, because I don't want anything. I just want it to be done. So, independent federal agency supports science and engineering in all 50 states and U.S. territories. All right. Promote the progress of science. Advance the national health, prosperity and welfare, secure the national defense. These are the things that I'm talking about that I've been presenting. All right, they fulfill their mission chiefly by making grants. I got to get a hold of my people. We never realized this. All right, so if we got a database, and then we get a little bit of funding, we could be in business here. I'm going to look into it. That's what they do. I believe if we can get this database hooked in with an actual, a test of a whole batch of volunteers for all of these different fecal specimens and so forth, and then we need to be able to get authority to try testing fecal matter transplants, microbiome, whatever. There's going to be a lot of, regulatory stuff, I'm sure. But before we can understand anything, we need to take that database and refer it to some kind of a test of volunteers. And people that have conditions, just let them put the conditions down. Say, here's what I'm suffering. Here's my problems. Blah, 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 and here's my specimens. And maybe they have to pay for the specimen retrieval themselves. I don't know what it would cost, and I don't know how to do that. We'd be starting out like the people making the bandages. I know they make places, you can harvest saliva and stool specimens. I know they do it all the time. How would that process it quick enough so that you could make a diagnosis, just, make a database of literally millions of people? Basically, you'd want that. And you'd want every little detail about them. All the way from, like, where they live and, their sex, their race, their everything. And put it into a database. You're going to see a pattern emerge. All right, and then the healthy ones are all going to be over here, let's say, and all the unhealthy ones are going to be over here. And you say, if this chunk is wrong, that's going to be because of this bacteria is not available in the microbiome. Something like that. And it could be that simple. And to promote this from 1950 to now, I think we need to do a little better on applying the research and getting these tests done. you know, if you don't run the research projects and get the database associated to the results, you're just doing nothing really. You know, you got a database, yeah, that's great. We know, yeah, they're sick, all right. Well, what do you do about that? Oh, we need more studies. Well, let's try replacing some of the bacteria. The only way right now, they have fecal matter pills, and you just have to take the pills. And the research that I have seen, and again, this is just research. I'm not telling anybody to take anything, but from what I have seen, is and they are approved. These pills are approved for C. diff. C. difficile is a terrible gut infection, and they treat it with all kinds of antibiotics and all kinds of things like that. And it's very reoccurrent. It comes back all the time. And the only way they can get rid of it is to give them a fecal matter transplant. And you can't get a fecal matter transplant until you fail the drugs. Why? I don't know. Because then when you take the fecal matter transplant, it's almost always successful. I would start with the fecal matter transplant. It's just nothing more than feces that's been dried and processed and been proven that there's no harmful bacteria in there that they can determine. And then they're put in pills and you just take them. And that's what I would like to see tested against all of these other conditions. What is the beginning bacterial count? And then applied to the database. And then you say, ooh, let's try some fecal matter transplants. All right, and then see how it relates to the database. And I've heard that occasionally when it doesn't work, they give them another dose of it. And it still may not work. But I heard one, they had to give them 5 doses, and the 5th dose, it was perfect again. The gut was working perfect. Now, because again, there's thousands of different species, and you don't know where you're getting it from either, because they harvest it from healthy donors. They take their poop and they process it and they do whatever they do to it to ensure that the pathogens are not inside of there. There's no something in there that would harm you. And then the rest they dry out and put in these capsules. And the capsules apparently can get down to where they open up in your small intestine, I believe, is where they want that matter to start to grow in that area. And I only think you take the pills for about 5 days, something like that. And then I guess you see what happens. Right now they have probiotics. People take those, and they seem to help. You know, they do seem to help. I don't want to make that a non-helping thing. They do seem to help. If you're not digesting your food correctly, you're not going to feel well. You're not going to have energy, and there'll be a lot of things. So, and they're starting to realize that everything's about bacteria now. You're seeing it every day. Oh, yeah, we figured this out, we figured that out. Well, we're going back 12 years ago to a database that should have been used to figure this stuff out long ago. So, let's see if we can get some help here.